All right. So one of the things that is probably the most frustrating for me is when I have a really, really, really great thought and I'm like, man, I have been trying to deal with this for the last 6 months. And I have this thought and I'm like, this is the greatest. And then I go, oh crap, I've had this thought before. The whole reason why I've been tangled up the last 6 months is because I didn't remember it. I didn't remind myself of it. And it's a truth that will need repetition. And true humility is when you say, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get where I need to go. True humility is not, aw shucks, and I guess I'm not that smart. That is not humility. That is low self-esteem. That's picking on yourself. That's stupidity. Okay, that's foolishness. Humility is, hey, you know what? This particular skill is super hard for me to develop. I'm going to need help. If you have 2 ounces of humility in you and you understand that repetition is the way that we learn, and repetition, especially if we take it upon ourselves to say, hey, you know what? I understand that there's a reason why I need to repeat this stuff over and over and over again. I need to wear a fresh path through my brain. And the older we get, the more that we need to repeat these truths, okay? We get into habits of thought, just like we get into habits of everything. If you took a 12-year-old and you reconfigured their keyboard, they would get it figured out. You take a 40-year-old and reconfigure their keyboard, they will be a very long time getting it figured out. And the only way that they're going to get it figured out is through repetition, so that I can type in this new way. I say that because of something that I'm going to get to halfway through this. Now, with respect to this is the high caliber method for your morning routine. And up here at the top, you're going to have just a real quick way of making this so that you're not buying a whole journal. You're not printing like for a whole year. You're just printing for what you need. I like about a 30-day load in my binder. 30 days takes up enough space. It's easy enough to flip through. At the top, just circle the month it is. Next line, circle the day it is. And then I put in here water, stretch, blood pump. I have this on here because it is not my nature to immediately go grab a glass of water, though it's the best thing for me to do. So I have it on here because I never lie. I don't lie to myself. I don't lie to people around me. And I will not put a check mark in there until I've gone and got that glass of water. And I routinely have already sat down. So I have to get up and go get that glass of water and then come back. Stretch. I don't like to stretch, but I need to stretch. So I've got it on here. These are the things that I would not normally do. I don't put on here things that I would normally do. You don't see on here, get a cup of coffee. Nobody needs to tell me to get a cup of coffee. Blood pump. It's good for me to get on the ground and do 40 crunches or 20 push-ups or do 10 burpees. I just need to move around in an especially vigorous way, even if it's just for 30 seconds to a minute. Just get the blood pumping, because I've been laying quite still for hours on end. I need to get the blood pumping. Okay, then we're going to come down here through a series of prompts, and so these are this is an editable sheet, right? So I was talking to a guy a little bit ago. He said, I want to add Bible reading in my morning. Beautiful. All you got to do is just add in Bible reading, because I'm going to guess he said that he wants it in the morning. It's probably just that he doesn't think about it first thing in the morning. Okay. So if he wants to add it, just put the little check box, add that in there. The way that I do this is because I've been doing this for a really long time, I know to grab my binder every morning. That's something that I don't have to think too much of. But before I was doing it every morning, I would put the binder out the night before on the kitchen table, on the place where I was going to sit. I do this with my sweats and my workout shirt. I set it out so that I don't accidentally go grab my work clothes and get them on. Because once I got them on, I'm probably just going to go to work. And it's putting an obstacle in front of me and getting into my workout clothes. So I make sure to put up my workout clothes the night before. I put them on top of the clothes that I plan to wear the next day. And most of the time I actually put the clothes I plan to wear the next day inside my gym bag, so that when I get up, I can just grab my stuff and go. And there's less likelihood of me being late to get to the gym. Down here, first prompt. Dear self, this is just you thinking, hey, what do I need to hear this morning? Top of mind. What's the first thing that's coming to mind? Just, hey, self, I'll just read you what I write. So I wrote here, today is up to you. You can impose your will or not, but it's up to you. Hard work works. God made me for work. He honors hard work done with good intentions. Do that coaching and change that life. Make healthy decisions. Use this day well. You only get so many Saturdays and so many hours in that Saturday. I wrote here, 78 days are left in the year. Be focused. So I write myself the thing that I need to hear for that day. For me, being productive and getting stuff done, and I want a life that matters and that affects people, and I need to remind myself. The earlier in the day that I can remind myself of that, the better off I am. Like I said, it's really terrible when you remember something 60 days after you had it for the first time and you spent the last 2 months kind of hung up. I think it sucks when you remember that this is an important day 4 hours in. So I try to remind myself just how important the day is, not to really put pressure on me, but to remind myself this is important. Second prompt, today I am looking forward to this. This one I love because the earlier that I can think about something cool that I get to do during the day, the better. This could be everything from I can't wait to hang out with one of my kids. I can't wait to see my wife when I get home. I can't wait to go have coffee with Brandon. Whatever that thing is, when I fill it in here and I'm like, man, this is cool. And one of the other things that you can do with this thing that you're looking forward to, especially if it's a meeting that you have, is I will routinely, if it is going to coffee with Brandon, going and seeing Sean, going and eating sushi with my daughter, I'll write this stuff in here. Then I'll take a picture with my phone and send it to them. And people love that when they know that you're looking forward to it. Plus, it also works as a reminder because sometimes people space off that they've got an appointment with you. And somebody like me that's not super organized is astonished that there's other people that are disorganized as well. So I try to use it also as a reminder. And people really, really love that the idea that somebody's thinking about them and looking forward to hanging out with them. So good. Okay. Chef kiss. So my theme word for today. So this is where you start thinking, how do I need to show up today? Right? Should I be like, I'll read you some of mine. Let's see. So I'll put in here work. Sometimes I'm not feeling it first thing, but I'm like, today I've got to get some work done. Focus, because, I realize that it's important. Today's super important. I need to focus. Flow, run, execute. Now, a lot of mine can be work related like that, but sometimes, for everybody's got their own different thing. It would be weird if a stay-at-home mom filled it out like this, right? Execute, focus, run. Like that would be weird. But so whatever it is that you need, however you need to show up, if you need to be, if you're like, I'm not a very compassionate person, then that's when you write in compassionate. And then you write out why you need to be compassionate, right? It's one of those things that helps us to intentionally set up for a successful day? Who needs me to show up and deliver? So there are times in our lives where all of us know we will work harder for that person over there or that person over there, or we will sacrifice for that person in our life in a way that we wouldn't sacrifice for our own self, right? We will, an example would be the food that we eat, we would never give to our pets because our pets would be bloated and super unhealthy. And for whatever reason, we care about our pets more than we care about ourselves. There are these times when we have to show up, and it helps us to focus. Who needs me on my A game today? Helps me to go, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this because I got something really important to do today. A concern that I have about today. So sometimes people don't like to look at what could go wrong, right? But it's super helpful, especially with the second half of this. So what could go wrong today, or a concern that I have? So sometimes I will have, I get more bent over small things going wrong than I do big things going wrong. So I might actually be concerned about, a piece of technology failing me, or a website crashing, or some missed call or miscommunication. And the second half of this is, what would my best self do in this situation? How would I advise myself to do this? The upside with this is, you know what? Sometimes that bad thing does happen. And if you've already thought about it, you can show up as your best self. All right? So for me, a lot of the time it's remarkable because I'll have different things. This could go wrong. This could go wrong. This could go wrong. This could go wrong. And my best self, generally speaking, takes a breath, pauses, thinks about it, and then I just respond appropriately. Be calm. Be kind. Take a breath and say, hey, you know what? This is normal. This is natural. An ink cartridge running out of ink when I really needed it to print. A pen running out of ink, dropping something. Like for whatever reason, I was a little bit edgy, but I was aware that I had been having this streak of a month or two where I was just kind of edgy. And I had a strategy, though, for how I was going to deal with that, right? Because it's my problem. And when I don't think about how I'm going to deal with it, that's when I get into trouble, and it spills over into other people's lives, which, makes me feel kind of crappy. Someone I could be generous to with a word of appreciation or encouragement. This is where you get to cheat and use that previous one. I do this regularly because I am not a particularly grateful person. I struggle with being grateful regularly. And so I have this on here and I wrote generous because I myself, for me, that is a word that I want used when I'm not around. That guy is generous. That guy gives. That guy shows up with and is thoughtful. And I want the word generous on my tombstone. I want generous to be said when people are talking about me. And so for me, that's why I have that word in there. What is that thing that you can say to somebody? You can communicate with a gift, with a thought, with a text message, with leaving a voicemail, a phone call, whatever. Just communicate to somebody that you care. These points of contact in a world where we are so disconnected and we don't even go to work sometimes makes a huge difference. In the future, it's going to be even more so. In the future, we're going to be less and less and less in contact with people, especially directly. If I looked at myself as a caring outsider, I would tell myself, now this can be all kinds of anything. This could be you looking at your life like you're a coach. This could be you looking at yourself like a loving parent, but this is for you to say something to yourself that would be encouraging, because some of us spend most of our time beating on ourselves instead of just encouraging ourselves. So what would be a word of encouragement that you could give yourself? The big project that I need to keep on my radar. Now, this part of the reason for this is to keep the mental load off of your brain, because we can get into situations where we're distracted by that thing. Man, I've been putting that off. And it'll be like a mental load. It'll be a little bit of a drag. And the thing is that this does a couple different functions. One is you've got it written down. Okay. So it doesn't need to be in your head. You've got it written down. Secondly is one of the things that you can also do with this, I've done this, is you can have these things that are, it gets old writing the same thing week in and week out. And you go, you know what? I need to get this on the calendar. This has got to get done. This is stupid that I keep repeating this over and over and over and over again, And so if for months on end, you're thinking, I need to write that book, sign up for that class. If you're putting for months and months and months on end that there's this thing that you need to do, eventually you're going to get it done. This is where you lead to a lot of regret if you don't do something like this. Okay, last thing on here. I would know that today was rad if at the end, ... If at the end I was feeling this, or at the end I was thinking this, or how would you know that the day was successful? What would it take? Now, sometimes I will have in here, like, I did my work. I worked on at the right pace, at the right focus. I recorded, I wrote, I coached. I connected with people. I have done the work that I am supposed to do. And so for me, I will know that it was a successful day if these certain things happened. And it helps me because this is the end of this process. And it helps me to, get the last of that coffee done. And then I'm heading out the door to the gym. I have accessed all kinds of parts of my brain, and I'm excited about today now. I'm ready to go. Now, the way that I have this in the binder, like this, okay? Now, what I do is I have this 8.5 by 11 sheet printed landscape. I have it folded on this line, which happens to correspond to this little tick mark here. So if you fold it on this side and you go to this tick mark and then you crease it, you're going to hit this line. Okay. So now from here, I take this because it's been folded the whole time and I fold it over, and now I can write over here. Now, the reason why I have this laid out like this is because usually what'll happen is at some point on here, I've got the right amount of lines for my average fill on any one of these topics. But from time to time, I will be writing and I'll be like, man, that was a really great thought. I was really going somewhere. And so I'll flip this over and I'll elaborate on what that is. I don't need to write a book. I just need to get a thought out into my head. And so I can have it there as something that I refer to. I can have it there so that, in a couple of months, if I need to go back and I go, man, somewhere about this time, I had this thought and I wrote it down. I can flip through here. I could even mark this up. Like I put a big line around here, which tells me that that was a pretty significant thought. When you get done with this, this is your morning routine. What I did was I made this so that you can flip this over. Same thing. There's a line right here. But that line, if you go to that line right there, it roughly corresponds and puts it right in the middle between the ruled lines there and there. But on this, so if you can own the first 30 minutes of your day, don't touch your cell phone, don't look, and your email is what Brendan Burchard calls a convenient priority list for other people. And you need to get out of bed and get your own head straight and get your own priorities straight. And then you can go out and you can serve better. Having your own priorities set. So in here, if you can own the first 30 minutes of the day and you can own the last 30 minutes of the day, it's way easier to connect yesterday with today and today with tomorrow. Okay, so at the end here, your last 30 minutes is connecting to what you've gone through today, how today went with right now, and then you go to bed, and in the morning you get up and your thoughts about yesterday are just a few hours away. It's not like they're 12 hours away or 14 hours away or something along those lines, unless you sleep 12 or 14 hours a day. Okay, the highlight of today was, I love this because it's so important. Like I said, I'm not a particularly grateful person. And for me, this is my bench press. This is that thing that I have to think back on the day. And now I'm actually a lot more grateful than I used to be. But looking back on the day, I also struggle with being appreciative. Even when sales go super well, I want them to be even better. When we hit record numbers, I'm like, well, why couldn't we have gone even farther, right? Got a little bit of benefit, but there's a lot of downside to that sort of thinking. And so a highlight of today, something I did well today. This is for a lot of us that, sometimes we're just not paying attention to the things that we did right. We're way more focused on the things where we screwed up and the things that we could have done better. And just taking a moment to appreciate the fact that you had a particular interaction that went well. You were bold and you were courageous, or you took the time to dot your I's and cross your T's, whatever you struggle at. Anything that you did well, this is where you write it down. Today I learned, like looking back over the day, what did I learn, right? Sometimes you learn something about yourself, other people, how the world functions. It could be something super minor. I could have done this better. So this, again, it's not something to beat yourself up with. It's something to just say, hey, what could I have done better? If I would have done this, I would have connected better with other people. Now, this is super important, okay? Sometimes we get so focused on the stuff that we forget about the people. And we need to, it's super important that we're focused on the people that have names, and it's important that we connect with them. It's what makes us human. If I looked at my life like someone who wants the best for me, I would say this. And sometimes this is, hey, you know what? You're going to get another day tomorrow. It's not your only day. Sometimes I will write in here, more of this. Today was freaking awesome. So I look at the day and I kind of evaluate it, and I write down something in there that but especially I say it to myself, like how would I talk to somebody that I cared about? How would I say this? There are times when we will speak to ourselves harshly, but we would never say stuff like that to our kids, our friends, or otherwise. And there's no upside to it. There's no benefit to it. So this is an exercise in speaking well to yourself, speaking kindly to yourself, and at the same time, not being an enabler, right? If you sucked, you can say it in a way where you are encouraging yourself to, hey, you know what? You're going to get another crack at this tomorrow. Hey, you know what? These things happen. You can comfort yourself, encourage yourself, and this makes it so that in the middle of the day when you need to actually do that, encourage yourself and comfort yourself, you've already done it a few times. It's not an alien habit, and you don't even require somebody externally to say good things to you. You can actually do this to yourself. So, and then again, on this one here, there is this sheet here because sometimes this is going to kick up some thoughts. Over here, I have these 5x8 recipe cards. Okay. Now, what I do with these is, like I was saying earlier, one of the things that really sucks is when you have a really great idea and you're like, I'm free, I've got this figured out, I know how I'm going to approach this circumstance or whatever, and then you realize I had this idea 6 months ago, and all of the torment and struggle that I've had for the last 6 months was completely unnecessary. So what I do is I will write down my really great thoughts that I need to repeat over and over and over and over again. I'll write those down here. And then in the morning, what I'll do is I will go through and I will read these, right? I'll read through all of my thoughts for, my change in perspective on whatever it is that I mean, what you need, right? You will have these thoughts, write them down, because repetition, it makes it so that we can eventually naturally do it. And so what'll happen is you'll start collecting thoughts. And then one day there'll be a day that comes where most of the time you're kind of cool. You're like, this is exciting to do this. And then there'll be this day that comes and you just look at it and you're like, man, that's a big stack. This is the day that you pull the stack out and you start taking a marker and you start reading through it and you go, you know what? I actually have this one. This is a moment of great celebration where you get to go, hey, you know what? I didn't just kind of learn this. I've internalized this. I've made this lesson like I've got this. And so you can go through and it's cool. When you start throwing away whole pages, you start discarding whole segments and all of a sudden you go from, you may go from 12 cards down to 3 cards because you're going to pull out other cards and you're just going to rewrite everything. Which is also helpful because sometimes you will say, I should have reworded that. I wish I would have used this word instead of that word. This is your opportunity to go do that. I will generally, when I'm going through these notes on a day-to-day and I go, man, I don't like that word. So I'll just put a line through it and I'll write a different word over the top of it that I feel better about. This is where I go through and I rewrite it with that better word. But anyway, the point is that this is where humility comes in and you go, hey, you know what? I just need repetition to get that right thought into my head. And then I can eventually own it and internalize it. And it's a part of me. And it really is like, because our thoughts and our physical behaviors are, not super disconnected. If you go and try to, if you're used to tying your shoes a certain way, you make the loop with your right hand. Try doing that with your left hand. It'll take a little while to get used to it. In the same way, that's the way that our thinking is. It'll take a little while to get used to it. You need the repetition. You can't just say, oh, I understand this idea and walk off. If you do, that is the opposite of humility, okay? Humility is when we say, hey, you know what? I just need to accept that I need the repetition. That's humility. And when you go that path, you get the benefit of humility. So that is the long and the short of how to use this. This is the high caliber morning routine in its 1.0 stage. I am very likely to be rewording a bunch of this, and I may even restructure this. All right, I will catch you later. Bye.